Nice to meet you too. I don't know how.
So a few months ago, I was just up at the local shops and ran into an old schoolmate. We'd kind of kept in touch over the years, but I hadn't seen him for a while, and he just asked me how things were going, and I said, things are going pretty well. I just back from a trip to Europe. My role and my job's going exceptionally well. My daughters are all doing well in their work and their studies. And then I asked him how he was travelling.
He's great.
And he stopped and his head kind of dropped a little and he mumbled away that he actually wasn't working at the moment. He and his wife had separated and his son had an AVO against him. Wow. We walked into a coffee shop and we sat and we talked for over an hour. From the outside, I thought he always had looked perfectly happy. He had an exceptionally successful sales career. His family, you just thought were a beautiful family, and nice car, nice house, all the usual trimmings. But behind all that was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and a significant amount of despondency. And so we kind of made a bit of a commitment to say, we must catch up and see how things are going. And we did for a little while, but eventually things dropped off. We all know that life can get busy. So today I'd like to just share some reflections on what happiness actually is and how happiness is perceived differently by different people. And when I actually started this topic, when Heather originally reached out to me, I actually had a similar experience to you, and I began doing a little bit more research than I thought I actually needed to do, and found out that there is a significant amount of information about what authentic happiness means and what it actually means for salespeople. And as I started getting into the research, I realised I actually needed to temper that a little bit and try and pull back and actually find some practical applications that we as sales leaders and sales enablers can take into our communities. So briefly, just a little bit about me. I love learning. I've been to lots of universities, in particular regional universities I have a penchant for. I'm married. I have 3 lovely adult daughters. I've worked for some really cool companies like Upstream, QuickBooks, and I'm now with Oracle NetSuite. And I started life actually as a high school teacher before I went into sales and then sales enablement. And on the weekends, just when I feel like I need some relaxation, I'm a mad, fanatical foundation member of the GWS Giants. But I want to start with the concept of mental health. The World Health Organization defines mental health as a state of well-being in which an individual realises his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. That's mental health. Since World War II, we've been living in a society that has had psychology and psychological health support in volumes. Unfortunately, they've done a very ordinary job in prevention. They've done an exceptional job in cure. So one of the things we need to think about is how do we actually build on those skills that are just essential for the prevention of mental illness and mental health disorders. And so we're going to reflect a little bit on that. This is a huge issue in Australia and globally. It's a critical issue for our entire society. Anxiety and depression rates continually creep upwards. In 2018, 1 in 5, or 4.8 million Australians, had a mental or behavioural condition. And that was an increase from the 4 million in 2015. Now, obviously, this was due in some ways because people felt able to report anxiety-related issues and feelings of depression. But according to our friends at PwC, those untreated mental health conditions cost Australian workplaces around $10.9 billion per year. 4.7 billion of that is in absenteeism, nearly $200 million a year is in compensation claims, but $6.1 billion of that is in presenteeism. So for a moment, let's dwell on presenteeism. That's that practice of employees attending the workplace with a condition, illness, fatigue, exhaustion, and it protects them and prevents them from working productively. In short, it's being present at work while being sick. And of course, the rise of mental health issues in the workplace has fueled the rise of presenteeism. Mental health issues are more often than not long-term rather than short-term. And once those limited leave entitlements are utilised, an employee with long-term mental health issues is really forced to attend a workplace or actually risk not even being paid. Yet greater than all of that economic cost is the tragic personal cost of death. The ABS found that in the last 12 months, suicide rates in Australia increased by 9%. Suicide is an incredibly complex phenomenon. The circumstances that lead people to think about suicide or take their lives are never alike. People who die due to self-harm are actually thought to have a significantly higher rate of mental illness. Yet, not everyone who takes their life meets that definition of a mental disorder. We know different things, but the chilling statistic that we need to come back to is that more than 3,000 Australians end their lives each year, around 8 people a day. We lose more people to suicide than die on our roads. And the rate of suicides among males is 3 times greater than that for females. And in a sales profession, there is a disproportionate number of males. And the data also shows us that the largest age-specific increase was males 45 to 54 years. And sadly, in my own social network, I have felt the impact of 2 of these tragedies in the last 12 months. So why salespeople in particular? Well, studies from the 1970s right through today have indicated that salespeople suffer mental health-related issues above the norm. Very few professions suffer a greater prevalence. In fact, the US National Survey on Drug Use and Health rated sales in the top 10 professions of people likely to suffer a mental health disorder. So why? And we'll go into that first, but first before, I just want to see what literature and the arts actually give us as an insight. The Wolf of Wall Street, as Jane just mentioned, Glengarry Glen Ross, even the sitcom Modern Family, all provide stereotypes of salespeople. However, for me, the most poignant portrayal is that of Willie Loman, the lead character in Arthur Miller's play, Death of a Salesman. Loman's probably the fictional character that typified America post-war. But as he enters his 60s, he's got heavy debts, he's got failing health, and strained relationships with his sons, and he's living in his glory days. He hasn't accomplished very much in his life. When he loses his job, he's forced to admit that he's a failure and kills himself in a car accident. When the play was first released in Broadway in 1949, audiences and critics just praised it as it typified everything that was going on with America's everyman. It was chasing that goal of wealth and success, but actually finding yourself personally destroyed because you're never able to live up to that moment. Interestingly, 50 years later, when the play was revised, with Philip Seymour Hoffman playing the lead, the director sent the script to 2 psychiatrists, and they came back and said clearly Willie Loman suffers a manic depressive disorder. If you've never seen the play, it is worth seeing. If you've never watched the movie, it's worth watching. I had a quick look around. The Campbelltown Theatre Group are putting it on this May. So again, why salespeople in particular? In the 1980s, a lot of research was done on salespeople and alcoholism. And researchers looked at why was there a significant amount of alcohol abuse in salespeople. And the results of that research concluded this was due to constant rejection, that freedom to set your own work hours, work addiction, and required on-the-job drinking. But interestingly, research conducted by the Canadian Health Alliance recently concluded that the top 3 reasons for mental health issues in salespeople were these: micromanagement by leadership, missing target, working with demotivated salespeople. And of all the research the Canadians did, the bottom of the 15 responses was rejection or the client telling me no. In other words, there has been a change. So we as sales enablers work consistently to elevate the stature of sales, and we know that this is a constant struggle for many salespeople. They have that lack of pride in their profession. We don't gain external recognition of sales as a legitimate and fulfilling career choice. However, events such as this are an important step on that journey. And yes, sales is high pressure. Business demands, industry changes, regulatory and compliance shifts, these all impact on the ability to achieve targets. And as we all know, this can have a significant effect on individual salespeople. So what do we do? Recently, I read the book by Carol Dweck, Mindset, an awesome book about motivation and perspective. And the concept is understanding whether you have a growth or a fixed mindset. And that fixed mindset is that belief that you have, those qualities that you have are there and can never be improved upon. However, the growth mindset is all about the ability to know that we do have an opportunity to develop further, to advance, to expand, to see the opportunity, to see potential in every moment. And that growth mindset is what begins moving people forward and enabling them to feel better about themselves. And for a moment, I just want to focus on positive psychology and the impact that it has had. Positive psychology is that school of thought in psychology that works on preventing or upskilling people so that when they face a critical issue or a mental disorder, it enables them to have some ability to better cope. Martin Seligman is the founder of positive psychology. And these 5 core elements, positive emotion, engagements, relationship, meaning, and accomplishment, builds on to physical activity, nutrition, sleep, and optimism. These are the fundamental building blocks of positive psychology. But let's just focus on positive emotion for one moment. Positive emotion helps us in a myriad of ways. It enables us to tackle negative emotions or experiences when they arrive. For positive emotions to work, we need to make sure that all our basic needs are met. Food, water, shelter, sleep. When these needs are met, we can then open ourselves up to exploring what can further fuel our positive emotions. Intellectual, creative pursuits, relationships, fulfilling work. And positive emotion is more than just happiness. There are a range of positive emotions, including amusement, hope, interest, joy, love, compassion, gratitude, and so on. And part of our ability to actually enable positive emotions is actually genetic. But all of us can think about purposefully experiencing more positive emotion. And for those people who are sales leaders and sales enablers and sales facilitators, think about the variety of activities that you can do that can help bring about positive emotion in people. And one is to think about a future. and a future time and where they actually have fulfillment in their life. And what are some of the things that you can go through? I'm sharing my slide, and the link to some of these activities are included in the slides. And I'm conscious of time as well. So we need to make sure that we're actually having a mentally healthy sales career. As sales enablers, we want to be very, very wary of attention to a positive mindset, and we want to build up our world as coaches. Now, even though the discussion around mental health has become less taboo in society, a salesperson will often still feel embarrassed or fear talking about their mental health struggles in the workplace. As sales leaders, we need to start the conversation, and we need to create that culture where it's perfectly acceptable to talk about mental health. But one of the reasons that we may fear this is our own skill. So one of the things I do recommend for people is to undertake a mental health first aid course. They are run continually by numerous different providers. Some go over weekends, some go over at nights. And what it does, it actually gives you the skills for when someone says to you, actually, I'm not okay, it gives you the skills in being able to handle that. And I think for most of us in the room, what motivates us is seeing happy and successful people. People who are kind of individually and collectively positive, but not artificially. That they actually can bring about problem solving and creativity. That they have great social relationships, both within the workplace and outside of the workplace. And I think learning the skills of mental health first aid are absolutely critical. My former colleague, Chris McComb, put this quote up there. The support network I have here is beyond anything I would expect from any company. Not only am I surrounded by people who understand, they also actively support and console me through good times and the bad. Chris has been very open with his mental health issues as a sales professional. He's highly successful as a sales individual. He's highly successful as a sales presenter, and he does brilliantly when it comes to talking to people about mental health. So just very quickly to finish up a couple of things. I think there are 5 key tips, and one of them is that we actually need to acknowledge emotions, and we need to get better at being able to do that. And secondly, we need to think about, why is advancement always linked to performance? This morning, we've already heard conversations about when people are able to give back the gift of generously mentoring or able to support or be a team leader, it's another way of enabling people to be advanced. And I think with salespeople, there is the skill that we need to work on in helping them overcome the negativity bias. It's actually very easy to remember that deal that you lost compared to the 3 deals that you won. I had a leader who used to always say, the nasty stuff leaves a much bigger impact on your brain. But we need to work also on grit, developing passion and perseverance for those long-term goals. And finally, and this is very relevant at the moment, is we need to manage sales expectations in a down economy. We've heard about, obviously, everything happening with coronavirus. Plenty of us have been through SARS, the GFC. Some of us even survived the recession we had to have. But inspirational leaders have the ability to stop, to understand, to recalibrate, and help people on that journey during a very difficult time frame. So 3 quick wellness exercises. 1, gratitude journaling. Just for a week, write down 3 things that went really well that day. I had a really good cup of coffee. I was actually able to see the sun as I walked across Piermont Bridge. I met some fantastic and interesting people. And keep those gratitude statements in a box. And when you're having a downtime, go back to a constant reminder of gratitude journaling. And the second one is any one of the many mindfulness apps, Headspace, etc. I have no particular bias towards any of these. And the third one is walking. Walking is just, Aristotle and Plato taught us that walking was important. Their great ideas, they were wandering around the courtyard, talking to their students as they walked. We need to walk and talk. We've got great coaches in this room, and we have beautiful places not too far away where we can walk. This was Laura Falls the week before last when I was up there walking around. So let me finish where I started. I recently caught up with my old schoolmate for dinner, and he and his wife have been to counselling and are back together. It's the early days, but the signs are very positive. He has a new role, and his boss is letting him work 4 days a week, which gives him time to deal with other things. The relationship with his son is still very awkward. The AVO has been taken away. They're in counselling together, but it's a journey and he is on the right step. But I asked him, are you happy? And he actually mentioned the book by Alain de Botton, Status Anxiety. And he said, I'm actually happier now than I have ever been. I'm living in the now. I'm actually knowing what I'm grateful for, and I can see a future horizon that is positive. It's important to be on this journey with our salespeople. Appreciate the good in our lives and appreciate these great opportunities, and let's keep supporting those great salespeople. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave.